Well, good morning. How are you all today? Well, are we going to have a revolution, a civil war, or both? Well, I'll give you the answer that I think in just a minute. First, I want to say I just got notice from Amazon. Amazon is an Amazon company that prints my books that I should be receiving the next load here between the 24th and the 28th of this month. So everybody who's been waiting on their book orders, that's when we'll get them out to you. Sorry for the wait, but I just get stacked up and I have to wait for them. You know, when I sell out, and I'm trying to buy enough, but you all just keep buying so many. Thank you so much. Um, so anyway, I wanted to let you know that they will be coming as soon as I get the load in delivered to me. So I was just watching uh, Timcast, Tim Pool, who I've never watched it before. I'm probably the only person in the world that's never watched him, right? Because I mean, he's huge. I've heard about him for years. I thought that the name Timcast was a little weird. You know, it sounded like a little kid, and I had seen a picture of him, and this comes back from my own um, my own prejudices, and we should be careful of those things. I'd seen pictures of him, and I always wonder about guys who wear stocking caps inside, as a part of their normal daily wear. I know the younger people call them beanies, and I even wrote about this in the book. Don't understand why they call them beanies. We've all called them stocking caps, but that's just a generational thing. Anyway, Mark Harrison sent me a link, and he says, "Here, check this out, see what you think." And I did. It was quite a long. And I have to say this: I did watch. I enjoyed it. Who's calling me? Oh, okay. Uh, I enjoyed it. There's four smart people on there, and I don't know how they talk that fast, right? But they are some bright people on there. Very, very interesting. And starting at about the uh, 55-minute mark, they started talking about the subject that I want to talk about, and that is their guest on there said that he fully expected, either a revolution or a civil war within the next 3 to 6 months um, as a result of the election and the chasm that has developed within our country. And he expected, one thing he said, expected 1,000 deaths from this conflict by April. Um, I'm not sure how he juxtaposed that, but I'm just going to use that as a jumping off point because I think it is very possible. And I want to talk about whether we're going to have a revolution or a civil war or both. And I'm going to tell you right now, I think that if we do have it, it's going to be both. Now, I don't have to tell you about the importance of the election coming up. It's probably the most consequential election in my lifetime, and perhaps, well, I won't even try to compare it to anything else. This country stands at the point to where either stability is returned to it, or it's all going to fall apart. Um, People have this tendency to look at things as an either or, and very few things are that simple. And those who have questioned whether it's going to be a revolution or a civil war, I think, come from this kind of uh, polar position that it has to be one or the other. And what I want to say is that, with the exception of our Civil War, or not our Civil War, our revolution, I'm sorry, with the exception of that, most revolutions then result in civil wars. And so it becomes an ongoing situation that erupts into much greater danger than most people think. You know, when we read about our history, and of course, when we read about it in our history books, we read a little bit about the causes, not much, to be honest. And it's slanted. We read a little bit about the causes. We read a little bit about the leaders. We read a few excerpts about heroes, Nathan Hale and everyone, and the shot fired, the shot heard around the world. We're taught snippets of history from which then we think that we have gleaned a full understanding of the situation, and of course we don't. And all you have to do is talk to the average American about and ask them what they know about the revolution, the war of northern aggression, and all that. And it doesn't take it long to realize they don't know very much at all. But they operate, the American people, and probably most people in the world and other countries, they operate as if they know everything, right? And everybody has an opinion on it without really understanding what their opinion may or may not be based on. When you look at other revolutions, and I'll use the Irish Rebellion and the Russian Revolution as examples. Now, one thing that I should throw in here, and I've almost reached the end of the Timcast. The guy did say, and he has studied many of the revolutions and many of the social upheavals, and I don't remember the guy's name. Very smart guy, and he says that these things happen in patterns. Now, he did not mention John Glubb's Fate of Empires. Matter of fact, I was just talking to my oldest son Aiden about this yesterday. And if you haven't read Fate of Empires, you should. You can find a PDF on it online. Just Google it, John Glubb, Fate of Empires PDF, and it's about 28 pages. And Glubb tracks many of the empires, many of the historical empires, and he shows that there is a close correlation between all empires as they begin, their ascendancy, their peak, their descendancy, and their collapse. And all of them last about 250 years, and they pretty much go through the same pattern as to what's going on with them and the causes for their collapse. And we are in the descent. We are in the final descent, close to the collapse here. And since they happen about every 250 years, we're getting there. We're due, right? But getting back to what I was talking about, if you look at most revolutions, you'll find that many of them were immediately followed by civil wars. And the reason for that is because, well, for instance, we'll take the Russian Revolution. They were revolting against the Tsar. There were a number of groups that hated the Tsar. So a number of disparate groups, maybe somewhat different groups, hating the same thing. And so working together, they rose up as in a revolution against the Tsar, overthrew the Tsar. But then you had a lot of different factions that didn't agree with each other. And of course, they all wanted to be in power. They wanted to run things. They were happy to have the help of everybody else who hated the Tsar to overthrow the Tsar. But now it comes down to who's going to be the boss, who's going to be in charge. And the ones, of course, who won out on that were the Bolsheviks. Now, the Bolsheviks directly were responsible for what happened as in the lead up. And of course, Russian Revolution 1917 were directly responsible for the buildup of what turned into World War II, the rise of Hitler and World War II. And because that, for those of you who don't know, because Hitler hated the Bolsheviks. And if you really want something to turn your clock, communism killed a lot more people. Communism, as a result of the Bolsheviks, they slaughtered a lot more people than Nazi Germany did. Look it up. So let's get back. Somebody will say, did I just hear you say something defending Hitler and Nazi Germany? Get the wax out of your ears. You didn't hear me say that. You heard me give you a fact that you might not have known, and you might consider it. Let me take a sip and we'll continue. Now, when you look at the Irish situation, and a lot of people, I mean, look at how many people were slaughtered during the Russian Civil Wars. You look at the Irish situation, when they rose up and finally rebelled against British occupation, they were united in their hatred of the common enemy. And then afterwards, there was fighting. There were civil wars in Ireland between different factions who, guess what, wanted to be in charge. I think that if this pops off, and I think that there's a good chance that it could, I'll get back to that in a second. That's exactly what's going to happen. That there is no the people on the Timcast said this, and I can't swear to this because I haven't seen the information myself to back it up. And this also is opinion. And they said that there has to be a war because both sides want a war, right and left. I'm not sure I agree with that. I don't think most people, I know there's a lot of rhetoric on the right saying we ought to just rise up and get this over with and get her done. And I get that. I understand that. On the left, I don't think there is a great desire for a civil war at all. I think on the left, there's a great desire for foreign wars because of the money involved and to take everybody's mind off what's going on in the country and to get our military, busy someplace else so that, in case there is an upheaval, our military won't be here to take a side that the powers that be may not want them to take. But I don't think that the left wants a war at all. They don't want a fair war. Let me say that. They don't want the right to rise up. They want for things to continue going the way they're going because they are operating under a government that allows them to do whatever they want. The summer of love, they can raise hell, they can burn cities, and nothing is done. So what they want is a continuation of this, and this is, if Harris gets in, this is what will happen. There will be a continuous war, not a war with firearms. There will be a continuous war against the right, a war against the family, a war against God, a war against traditional values and virtues, and until so that it will be the death of 1,000 cuts. More and more restrictions on our rights, gun rights, speech rights, religious rights. Go through the whole thing. They want to reduce our rights, and they play the long game. They are communists, and if you've over on the Patreon channel, I think it might have been on the American Reversion Patreon channel, where I read the goals of the American Communist Party from the 1950s. They are being successful in that, and as long as they're being successful, they don't want a war because a war would mean people rising up to stop them. What is going on? Why does my phone keep sending me messages? Hang on, un momento. I don't know. It seemed like I just saw a message come across something about the recording. It probably says that the recording shut down, but I'll just keep talking just in case it didn't. So they want things to keep on going the way they have been. Because the death of 1,000 cuts, they're finally going to grind us into the dust, they think. And they will get their way. They'll pretty much, and they're close to it now. They're close to it now. The total, what shall we say? Well, the total devolution of this country is close at hand unless Trump wins and we start fighting. But I have no great hope that the right will fight. There's a lot of grumbling, a lot of complaining, but I don't see a lot of. For the most part, the people on the right, half of them don't even want to vote, and that's the most basic thing because they've already given up, saying that voting doesn't matter, and those are the people that will contribute to the final collapse of the country because they did not stand up and fight against it with something as simple as getting in their car and going down and voting because they've convinced themselves that it's not worth it. Well, it's. You know how I feel about that. Those people should be blamed as much as the opposition for anything that happens in our country. So what will happen if Kamala wins? Nothing. It will continue to go the way it has been, and I don't think there won't be another legitimate election for a long time, because they will be rewriting the laws, the election laws, everything that we have seen as far as lockdowns, as far as the collapse of the economy, foreign wars. They'll be wanting to send our young people across overseas to fight for other people and other people's borders, and that's what we'll get. We'll get a continued collapse. If Trump wins, then it's going to set it off. We are going to have a lot of, I would call it terrorism, internal terrorism. We'll have a lot of fighting. We'll have a lot of burning. We'll have a lot of random attacks against people. We'll have a lot of murders. We will have places like that. What was that place up? Was it Portland, or was it? I don't know. The place where they took over a whole portion of a city. Was it Chaz or something like that? They will do that, and they will take over whole sections of cities. They'll burn out some. They'll take over other sections, and depending on what state it is, the police, the mayor, the governor may not do anything about it. They'll take over whole sections, and essentially we will have the spark of a revolution, and it will be the left starting the revolution. Because if they haven't been able to be successful with the devolution that keeps on going, that they're in the process of being fairly successful at now, they will start the revolution. And then what happens? They are unified. The left is unified. The right is not. The only thing that will unify the right is a common enemy. That may do it. But then, as I was talking to my buddy Mark, the one, my one here that we do lights with, what are we fighting for? It's easy to talk about, and I talk about this in my book series. It's easy to fight against something, but what are you fighting for? And a person can say, well, I'm fighting for freedom. Okay, freedom from what? And then once you get freedom from that, now what do you have? Have you fought for something or just against something? And I think that that's important. And the vague idea of freedom is, it sounds good. And it sounds particularly good when Mel Gibson screams it, right? Freedom. But you have to have a viable goal as to what form is that freedom going to take. What kind of government? I talk about this in my books a lot. What kind of government is the right kind of government? The government we have now is corrupt beyond belief. There has to be a change in that. I think I'll stop there, because this is going to be the subject for another video that I want to make. And so you need to consider that. So when people are asking, will there be a revolution or will there be a civil war? I think the answer is, if there's one, there's going to be the other. If there's revolution, there's going to be civil war, because afterwards you're going to have a lot of factions who, while they were united in their resistance to, whatever, now they all want to be in charge, and you're going to have fighting between those. And it's going to be a mess. It's going to be a mess beyond, I think, what most people can even imagine. And like Gibson's character in The Patriot said, it's going to be amongst your houses. It's going to be in your cities. It's going to be all over the place. You will not be able to escape it. And that's something to consider and prepare for. Okay, I'm gonna get off of here and hope that my camera kept on recording regardless of what it was sending me little messages. And encourage you all to think about this. And if you want to go over and watch that Timcast, it's very interesting, smart people. It's something like, I'll put the link to it down when I put this on Patreon. I'll put the link down below so you can watch it if you want. And like I said, the part that starts having to do with this starts at about the 55-minute mark, and it's very interesting. So, revolution, civil war could be coming. Depending on what happens with this election. I think that we're going to have big problems no matter who wins. Like I say, if Kamala wins, we're going to continue the devolution. If Trump wins, I think that's when we have the true chance of revolution and or civil war. So you all have a good day thinking about that. Make sure that you're prepared. And remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. And you want to be able to live well tomorrow, whether we're at peace or whether we're at war. So you all have a good day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.